Episode of the Extraordinary Sports Podcast. I am fired up to be on the mic with the special guest that is the executive producer of one of my, if not favorite shows in all of sports, The Herd executive producer, Greg Toohey. Greg, such a pleasure to be on the mic with you. How we doing?
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Doing great.
Oh, beautiful, sunny Southern California. You can't complain without question. But hey, I want to jump into it because this is kind of what brought us together. I'm grateful for Twitter for that reason. You were kind of talking about your gym experience, and there's a guy who happens to be abusing his towel privileges. And, you know, me being a Seinfeld curb guy, went right to that being a character Larry and Jerry would hit on. But from your point of view, let's touch on it before we dive into sports. What the heck's going on with the sweater, Craig?
Okay, so I see this guy. It's not a big gym. It's a smaller gym, and so needless to say, when people like this do things like this, they stand out. So this guy, he only ever works out on the elliptical machine. So every time I see him, he's always on the elliptical. Never lifting weights. Never, doing anything else. So he starts out with like 5 towels, goes right to the machine. And then about 20 minutes in, he stops, goes back and grabs 5 more towels. And then I think when it's all said and done, he kind of repeats the process, I would say 3 or 4 times. I would say he's probably at about, I don't know, I would say 30 towels, give or take.
30 towels?
After an hour, maybe.
30 towels for one elliptical machine.
I would say easy 30. And sometimes he grabs more than 5. I would say that there's 6, maybe 7 at a time. Because what he does is he has the whole elliptical machine covered up in towels. Sweating on the machine. So he's got like 3 on each side, like on the sides, on the handlebar sides.
So that eliminates him checking his
covering the front.
So he's not checking his heart rate, clearly, that's where you would put your hands. Now, is he one of those towel grabbers that he likes to make it a scene? Every time he goes to grab more, he's checking out the room, making sure people are looking at him. Is he that kind of a guy? Is he doing it for attention, you think, just as much for...
No, he's not like the meathead type. Like I would say he's probably like mid-50s, and he doesn't like work out his upper body, so he doesn't look like he's in great shape.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at his calves, I mean, heck, his calves are like popping out of his legs. That's all he does for like 2 hours straight, just the elliptical.
So is there a small community? You can't be the
purpose, but it's just weird.
Well, you can't be the only one that's noticed this. I mean, there's got to be a few heads turning with 30 towels. I mean, this is, I don't even know how do you alleviate such a situation? It's absurd.
Well, what he does is when he's done with the first set, he'll throw them in the basket, the dirty basket. So I don't think anybody really has an idea of how many he uses. I have a good keen eye of just remembering things and recognizing people. Like I like to watch people when I'm not in public. So like the first thing you do is when you see something like this the first time, you're like, whoa, like shit, like this guy's got 6 towels. Like I've only used 1 every trip to the gym ever. And then I see him like stop, and I think, oh, he's done. Okay, no, that's cool. Good workout for this guy. And then he goes to grab 5 or 6 more, and you're like, all right, that's like 10 or 12 towels in like an hour. And then I thought then you think he's done, and he's not. He keeps going. So, I mean, it's just one of those random things. I'm sure other people notice it, but it's a smaller gym, so I don't think they care. And
but I mean,
what he every day? Like I don't see him every week. I would say I see him like once every couple of weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks, because you're not on the same schedule. You work out at different times as people sometimes. So but when I see him, he's doing the same thing. I never see him do anything else but on the elliptical using towels.
I mean, that is hysterical. I mean, I'm a schwitzer myself, so I could somewhat relate, but that's absurd. I mean, this is a communal environment. Anyways, we don't have to go too much into it, but I just thought that was hysterical. What an image. I'm glad you only see him a couple times a month, because if this was a reoccurring thing.
I'll try to get a picture the next time I see him, and I'll send it to you.
That would be absolutely fantastic. Well, anyways, that was an interesting caveat to kick things off, and that's what brought us together. So I do want to segue into the show. First off, congratulations. You amassed over 5.7 million hits in the month of March across all mediums. Yeah. That's unheard of. Unbelievable. And I know the show only has, it's not even 2 years in. September 2015, correct me if I'm wrong. And obviously you were brought on board with Colin and everything. And I know, you feature a few people on the show. You are on occasionally. So you're kind of the genius behind the genius. And I did want to talk. I love talking to guys like you because you're doing what you're doing, not necessarily getting the credit, or if you will, you're a glue guy and pretty much the coach of the team. So what is it like from your point of view day in, day out on such a successful show? And has the success shocked you at all, or is this everything you envisioned signing up for when you did?
Well, I knew when I came together with the show and Colin came to Fox, and I was fortunate to become a part of it. I knew I was a big fan of Colin before this started, so I knew how successful he was and how successful the show could be. Because when he was at ESPN, it was, I think he was sort of behind the coattails of Mike and Mike and some of the other shows there, and I don't think they appreciated him like they should. So when it came here, I kind of knew the backing that was that he was going to have as far as all the support with TV and all the support on the radio side, that I knew it was going to be a successful show. It was going to just take some time because we were building it from scratch from the radio side. Mm-hmm. So we started out with, basically just a handful of affiliates, and now we're up close to 200. So that's in less than 2 years. So
it's amazing.
You had that with the TV component. We're things are going great. Everyone's just ecstatic, and the sky's the limit. But as far as my role, like you said, I'm kind of like the glue guy. So John Goulet, who works with me, he worked with Colin at ESPN. He's more of our kind of the sidekick on air with Colin and Christine. I work more behind the scenes as far as with the TV side during the show. I've got to navigate kind of where we're going throughout the show with them, with coordinating with the guests when the guests are coming on. As far as I do a lot of the sales stuff, so I'm involved with making sure Colin does a lot of making sure he gets his reads in and keeping the sales folks happy. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of like a lot of the stuff that I do doesn't really translate to what you see and hear necessarily, but it's a lot of stuff that you kind of have to do to put a radio show, a TV show together. And the biggest difference for us, for me and John coming over from radio, just exclusively, is that when you're doing a radio show, it's just you, your host, and then probably your tech producer, engineer, right? 3 or 4 of you. TV now, there's we've got the 3 of us with Christine with 4, and then you added all the TV people. Now you're looking at 10, 15 folks. So when you add in all the different people that are a part of it, as far as you got research, and you got your director and your coordinating producers and all that. So production assistants that help us. Also that aspect, so you got a lot more that help put the show together. So there's a lot more going on behind the scenes where I kind of need to help keep everything, kind of going on the tracks, basically. Keep the train on the tracks.
Yeah, and so for people that have seen like the Larry Sanders Show and such, get an idea of how hectic running a TV show is. Again, you are the coach, so to speak, making sure everybody's playing their role and doing what they need to do to keep the show flowing. I love looking at different coaches' styles. I mentioned the Phil Jackson, the Popoviches, the Van Gundys, all sorts of stuff. Do you have a style for how you coach and how you empower others with their role, or are you just kind of a play to your personality kind of guy?
So here's what I do. I would say that, I know that there's a lot of very talented young people that we have on the show. Like, mm-hmm. A lot of them are, I would say 10 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. And it would be very easy for me to dismiss them and say, your opinion doesn't matter. Or you may have a good point to make in our prep meeting, but I don't really care what it is because, you're underneath us.
Right.
I look at it like this. If you're smart and you got something to say, I want to hear it. So we all sit in our room, our prep room before the show, prep meeting, and we're all throwing out ideas for Colin. I mean, we're all giving our opinions. I mean, well, obviously, there's a couple of us that are kind of getting the stories together as far as what we want to hit on. But if somebody has something to say as far as an opinion on how to make a topic better or grow it further, you know, we're all about letting everyone in on it. So
that's fantastic.
I'm not one of those egotistical types where I don't let anybody else have an opinion. And I think if you are in this business, you're shortchanging people that are around you that can help make your show better.
That's very well said and great to hear. And I think that's a big part of why your show is so successful. And I kind of want to go off of that with what Colin was alluding to this morning when he was touching on, you know, the idea of people hitting them up via Twitter or email of thinking that, you know, if I'm anti Calipari or pro LeBron, that would, you know, that's for ratings or so on and so forth. And then he mentioned how, you know, people in my demographic, 25, 26, you know, who are in this space that, you know, he tells them to not necessarily, you know, go for doubles, go for home runs, if you will, because you do empower everyone in the writer's room and the prep meetings. Is it a combination of doubles and home runs for you guys? Because again, you are the number one in your space and people are looking at you guys as kind of the blueprint because you have phenomenal takes, you have phenomenal sound bites and great interviews. I am curious as to, is it a mix of both sometimes because you do let every voice in the room be heard?
I just think it's a matter of doing your homework. I think a lot of shows around the country, they don't put in the time that it takes to put on a great show. And the reason Colin's the best is because our show starts at 9, but Colin's there at 6 o'clock every day.
Right.
So he comes in to the room at 6 o'clock, and all of us are already in there waiting for him. We have the stories printed out so he can take a look and see what he wants to hit on. But, you know, you got to put the work in yourself. I mean, a show is only as good as its host. You can have a staff of 50 who all went to Harvard or Syracuse or whatever. But if your host doesn't put the work, if the host doesn't come in to do that prep, that extra above and beyond prep, the show's not going to go anywhere. So, I mean, I would say that it really is all about Colin, the fact that he comes in 3 hours before his show starts, and we just sit down. I mean, he comes in, and there's no like, hey, guys, how's it going? Like, how was the night? Did you guys watch this last night? Or, hey, how was the weekend? You know, like, there's no, like, chit-chat. Like, we all sit down, and he starts, and he goes, hey, I had an idea this. I was on the way in. I had an idea. Can you get me Peyton Manning's touchdowns, interceptions from last year? And then I need Andrew Luck's touchdowns. And then we just go. Yeah. And then he puts the show together, and then we just go. So we don't waste any time. We get right to it. And that's 2 hours straight of work. And, I mean, that's what makes the show great, is that you got him all in to do that.
That's well said. And so because you guys are a great team, what is your takeaway on what makes a great sports team? The Spurs, the Patriots, the Cardinals, because again, I realize what you guys do is a complete team effort. And so I am curious, you know, being on a team and being the head coach, if you will, of your team, what do you love in sports that makes a great team?
I just love teams. You mentioned the Spurs, the Patriots. I mean, there's something about organizations like that. And now you can even throw in the Cubs with Deion Epstein. I mean, they just hire smart people, and they really do their homework. I mean, look at the teams that don't do their homework. I mean, the Browns.
Right.
We talk about the Texans a lot with Tony Romo and how they haven't drafted a quarterback in the first round since 2002 with David Carr. I mean, like, if you're the Texans and you have the best roster outside quarterback, but you can't figure out a way to get a quarterback, then what does it say about your organization? I mean, so, like, just do your homework. Scout the right way. You know, like, just don't half-ass it. And you can tell teams like the Patriots, they do their homework. They don't cut corners. They don't take risks. I mean, the risks they do take, they're calculated, and they don't, you know, they're low paying. Yeah. And I think that's why teams like that stand out. I mean, why are the Spurs so great? Well, it's because they have one of You don't ever hear stories about RC Buford, the Spurs GM. Why not? Well, that's because he just does his job and he does it great. He doesn't have to tell you how great he is.
Well, I kind of feel like, just giving you some kudos. You're not out there talking about everything that you do. Then that is the culture that your guys' show is. We live in a world now, especially me being a millennial, where I kind of feel like my generation, everyone does want the credit and the accolades and whatnot. And my parents' generation, your generation, it's so different in a sense of putting your head down, going to work and doing the work. What is your takeaway on the big difference between the generation previous and the generation now in terms of, I guess, going after what we're all going after, and then what the intention behind it? Because it's just there's I don't know if you see where I'm going here with this, but I do find it to be interesting of the work ethic and the mindset. And I try to empower people my age and such, and not worry about a pat on the back for every piece of content you do or anything you're working on to get better. Because again, Rome wasn't built in a night. Your guys' show wasn't built overnight. It's hard work. It's day in, day out. But anything you can touch on with that in regards to just either? Yeah.
I would say, I think a lot of the millennial generation now, it's about self-gratification. It's about instant self-gratification.
Mm-hmm.
They want everything right away. They don't want anything. They don't want to have to wait for it. They want a promotion every 6 months or a year. They want a raise every year. They don't. I mean, I've been doing this for now, I would say 16 years. No, I would say about 14 years. And I mean, it's taken me 14 years to get basically from an intern to right here.
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, you have to really, really work hard and put the time and hours in. It's cliche. It really is cliche, but that's how it works. I mean, this business, you can't just go from we have a lot of kids who come through an intern, and they want to go right from college to being a full-time network producer. And that's just not how it works. I mean, you don't go from college to network producer. You got to go work in a local market for 5 years and learn how to be, learn how to produce, learn how to be, if you want to be on air, be an anchor or whatever it is, learn the sales side. So, I just think I think it's just this generation, how they want everything right away. They don't want to wait for it. And it's tough, some companies, some businesses allow you to do that. And others don't. And I think it's just a hard line sometimes for some of these younger kids to understand.
Well, I appreciate your 2 cents on that. Looking at the sports media world, so much has changed since the internet. I think being able to be malleable and look at the marketplace and be proactive with where the trends are going is just as much as important as doing what got you where you are. Any predictions on your end of where you see the sports media world going in the next 5 to 10 years, even the next couple, in terms of what people gravitate towards? As we know, Sports Center's going down. I mean, I got a brother born in 98. He does really get his highlights from Twitter and such. It is a different world we live in sports because it is so rapid and it's news every day. But any predictions on your end, being behind such a successful show, and where you see everything going in the years to come?
I think it's all going to be, it's going to be very digital heavy sooner than we think. I mean, I look at, it was funny, I was talking to my wife this past week, and we were talking about a lot of the hemorrhaging that's going on at ESPN, and she was like, well, what's the reason behind it? And I go, well, do you ever see me watching SportsCenter anymore? She said, no. And I go, well, why do you think that is? She said, I don't know. And I said, well, that's because I don't need to watch SportsCenter. I can watch everything I need to see that SportsCenter offers whenever I want. I can watch it on my phone before I go to bed after we put the kids down.
Yeah.
So, I just think it's going to be very digital heavy. I think radio, as you're seeing, studio shows drop, the demand for studio shows drop, you're seeing the podcast numbers increase. So, and I don't think that's a coincidence. So,
yeah.
I think you're going to see. I think radio is still going to be very powerful. I think podcasts are going to grow even more. I think you're gonna, you see what we're doing at Fox with what Jamie Horowitz, who was formerly at ESPN, now he's running our studio shows here at Fox.
Yeah.
The push toward debate shows and opinionated shows, and that's why you see what we have with Skip and Shannon and Colin and Jason Whitlock show in the afternoon. I think you'll see more and more of that because people, they don't want to waste time with what they're watching anymore. Nobody has time to waste time anymore. So you got to make it count, and you got to get people to tune in. You got to get them to listen to what you have to say. Well, how do you do that? You get shows where they make you think, and they make you, and you're giving them, that the host or talent's giving you their opinion on something, and it's helping you formulate your opinion. So I think that's where it's going to go. Exactly where it'll go, I don't know, but I think digital, podcast, radio, obviously opinionated TV is going to be where it's at.
Yeah, but I did hear Colin say that, just going off of your point a few weeks ago about, the idea that we live in such a rapid news paced world now where there's no shortage of getting your news. You can get it in 1,900 different ways, but the idea of strong opinions will always carry over because people love strong opinions. And I think you guys, your show is one of the best. And I want to talk about a couple of your opinions, Greg, because you do have an interesting Twitter that's exciting. And I know you haven't been on the Truth Couch. I want to see you on the Truth Couch, my friend. Is that going to happen at all?
I don't think I'll make it on the Truth Couch because, one, I might have to graduate to become a member of the Department of Bits. I may have to work under our executive director of Bits to get on the couch.
Right.
But no, I don't mind. It's funny. Before I worked on Colin's show, I was on. I worked with comedian Jay Moore when he was at Fox Sports Radio. Yeah. For about 3 years, and I was on air quite a bit with him, and I enjoyed it. But my bread and butter is working behind the scenes. I've always liked putting a show together. I love working with hosts on building a show each day and helping them formulate opinions and thoughts and ideas. And that's not to say that it'll never happen. I'm sure it will at some point. But but we leave the couch for the guests. I can't compete with Jerry Jones. Howie Long and Terry Bradshaw. That's just it's like a golden goose now.
No, I got you. But I do want to get I have you for a few more minutes. I do want to get a couple of opinions out there from you. Let's talk about the NBA stars resting. I actually got to interview Mike Vaccaro last week. The New York Post actually kicked things off because I heard on your show that was one of the most interesting takes. Learned his take. I like Nick Wright's take as well. I have an interesting one I'd like to think I pitched to Mike. He enjoyed. We talked about just before we hopped on. It is a serious issue with the NBA stars resting. I want you to have the floor. I'm very curious to hear what your takeaway is on this and what's Silver going to do moving forward.
I think it's really easy, and I don't think. I think people overthink it sometimes, because you hear a lot of the fans are paying good money for seats and tickets to see their stars play. I get that. But I also think that, if you look back to what the Warriors did a couple of weeks ago when Kerr decided to rest everybody on that back-to-back, and basically they knew the schedule. They knew they had a back-to-back. They knew it was a TV game. But he did it because he was trying to get back at the NBA for their schedule. They had to fly basically across the country twice in 1 week, and then ended with that back-to-back.
Wow.
Well, it's very easy for the NBA to fix the back-to-back problem. Just get rid of back-to-backs. How many times have you watched an NBA game where the team coming off the back-to-back looks like dog shit that night? There's no reason for it. The product's terrible. The team usually loses. If they win, it's like a bonus. It's like cherry on top. But there's no reason for any NBA season or NBA team should have to play a back-to-back ever.
Well, so right now the Hawks have the most this season with 19 back-to-backs. The Thunder have the least at 13. Do you think that needs to be a single-digit number moving forward?
Yeah, why do they play 15 preseason games? Or maybe it's 10, but it's probably between 10 and 15. They don't need to. They could play 5 preseason games. Like, cut the preseason down, and that would at least get you down to under probably 5 back-to-back.
Right.
And maybe, you do it and you space it out where teams play like every other day a little bit more often. They don't have maybe they don't have 3 or 4 day breaks because you don't need that either. Like, you'll have teams that play a back-to-back, then they'll have like 4 days off. There's no reason for that.
No, I'm with you on that. Absolutely. Well, I hope something's changed because again, it hurts the product. We all want to see good games. Playoffs are coming up. No one wants to see anyone hurt, but it is, I don't know. It's been an interesting year this year watching the way stars like LeBron and such have voiced their opinion about it. And then guys like Kerr. See, I didn't know that. That was a nice little piece of information there, what you were talking about with Kerr getting back at the NBA. I mean, that's,
I don't know. I feel like it's just, I get the whole fan thing. If I was a fan and I paid a lot of money, I'd be upset if I went to go see a Rockets game or a Laker game, and if it was Kobe and his son, Kobe wasn't playing. But I also know that a lot of times, because the way the schedule's packed, like if a team has like 5 games in 7 days, they might have, there's times when teams have 2 back-to-backs over a week. It's a crazy stretch. Well, if they didn't have that, there'd be less chance of teams sitting guys out. Players wouldn't feel the need to rest if they had a more spread out schedule.
Without question. And one more opinion question for you, and then I got one more, and then I'll get you out of here. The Tony Romo thing's interesting. Here we are looking at a couple of veteran guys still on the market, Cutler, Kaepernick, et cetera, for different reasons for each. Looking at the Russell Wilson going 3rd round, the Dak going 4th round, do you think that teams in the idea of landing quarterbacks may be a little more open-minded to finding their guys later in rounds or not necessarily in a top 5, top 10 pick format?
Yeah, I think, the thing about quarterbacks is it's such a crapshoot. Like, Dallas had no idea what they were getting with Dak Prescott. I mean, they had no clue. And neither did Seattle with Russell Wilson. So, like,
yeah,
a lot of times it's just like, does it pan out? It's like going to Vegas. I mean, are you gonna get 21 here? Like, you don't know. Like, it's sometimes it comes down. It's as easy as flipping a coin. Like, why do some guys work out and some guys don't? Like, why did Derek Carr work out but David Carr didn't? Well, you could say it was because of the horrible Texans line at the time. But I mean, it's just like, it's such a weird. Quarterbacks are always going to be a weird thing, and I mean, like, why did the Chargers take? Why did Ryan Lee not work out but they did? I mean, it just, and that was more obviously, that was more character stuff. But like, I think with quarterbacks, it's just you do all the prep work you can. I guess I could look at a guy like Johnny Manziel. Like, yes, he was great, right? Like, he beat Alabama and won the Heisman. But, like, did you really think that he was going to be a great NFL quarterback at, like, 5'11", 200 pounds, dripping wet? Like, look at that. Probably not. And I was one of the ones thinking, oh, my gosh, did Texans take him? I think they should. You can't pass on this guy. And then looking back, you're like, yeah, that play didn't make a lot of sense. Like, he did have a lot of warning signs.
Well, so let me ask you.
Russell, Jamarcus Russell. Did you see him gaining a lot of weight after college? Yeah, you probably could have.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious from your perspective, what separates the good from the great, especially at that position? I just interviewed Brandon Marshall's brother, who was talking about Peyton Manning pregame, because I am curious about how guys prepare. He's in silence, no headphones, pure moment. I'm a big meditation guy, visualization, seeing things in my mind before they happen. Do you think guys like Kobe, Brady, it's in them to be great? You can't teach that, and especially in this day and age where 19-year-olds in the NBA are getting $6-7 million a year, baseball is just stupid money, and so on and so forth. Do you think that is somewhat affecting the desire to be great as an athlete on the professional level?
As far as I
guess just like, well, yeah, I mean, well, you're getting millions of dollars now. That wasn't the case just a generation or two before. And then the idea that I don't know, that if you go early or you're a top pick, I mean, NFL's a little different, not necessarily guaranteed money here or there, but I'm just curious from your perspective. You've seen more sports than I have. What makes a guy great other than obviously putting in the work? Is there something to be said about the mental fortitude of that athlete, whether it's a Peyton or a Kobe?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, like, you look at, like, you hear, like, a lot of the talk about Russell Wilson when he was in college and how great of a leader he was and how, you know, people followed him. Like, I think that's got a lot to do with it. Like Brady, like, he was a natural leader. Like, yeah, and I think the homework thing is big though too. Like, you got to put the work in. Like, Phillip Rivers was on our show last year, and he talked about how he loves practice more than he likes the game.
Yeah, I remember that.
He loves the grind of Monday or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just as much, if not more than the game. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. But I also think that does he have it? Does this guy have it? Does he have the it factor? And if he does, then I think he's more likely to succeed than the guy who doesn't have it. And, you know, we talk about Lonzo Ball. Does Lonzo Ball have it? A lot of people think he does. Some people think he doesn't. But I think that's a big part of it as well. And I feel like, you know, there's just so many different ways to tell if somebody has that quality. But look at those guys. Like, those are the Peyton Mannings. Those are the Drew Breeses. Those are the Tom Brady's. I mean, the Russell Wilson. Those guys are all so similar in nature, right? They're all, you can talk about, you can look at those guys and see how they're so much alike.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. That's good. That's just wanted to go back to that. You were talking about how the Browns can botch on evaluating talent so time and time and time again. And I am curious from that perspective of how scouts and personnel go about evaluating guys coming into their organization. I think, you know, a lot of people just look at the physical intangibles, and I think the heart and the mindset is not to be overlooked. But I appreciate your 2 cents on that.
For sure.
And one last question, I'll let you go. Sports obviously teaches us phenomenal life lessons. We learn it big and small. You've worked in sports, growing up playing sports. You got kids now, I'm sure, that play sports. Anything that you've taken from watching or playing or working in this field that has taught you something about life that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, like, just kind of I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, but, like, my whole mantra since I started was to not let anybody outwork me. And I always tell the kids that come through, whether they're interning or who I meet just in passing here, is that don't let somebody outwork you. Because when I started as an intern, I was 25. I had an insurance job during the week, and I decided that I wanted to work in sports. So I started interning at radio, Fox Sports Radio, and I, started interning. I was interning as a producer on the weekends for some of our weekend shows. I did that for like 6 months, and they hired me on part-time to produce shows on the weekends, and I kept my other job with the insurance company during the week.
Mm-hmm.
And after about 2 years, a year and a half, they hired me on full-time. And it wasn't that like a lot of people that I worked with got passed over for jobs. Maybe they had more experience than me. But I felt like I outworked everyone else around me to get the job. And I feel like that's what I've done kind of my whole, in the last 15 or 16 years in my career in radio and now in TV radio, which is kind of with our combo show, that, I've always tried to be like, don't let somebody outwork me. And I feel like that's really helped me get to where I am today. And I think if most kids have that attitude when they're younger, they're going to make it, whether they're in TV and radio or they're writing or whatever.
Yeah, that's beautifully put, short and sweet, baby. Thank you so much, Craig. Honestly, the time, the openness, willingness to not just come on with me, but really dive into some questions and your 2 cents. I learned a lot from this, and I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
You bet, man. Glad to do it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Greg Toohey, executive producer of The Herd. Thank you so much. So, Greg, all